Welcome to 50 Plus in Montgomery County, a monthly program that is a voice for many, produced by the Commission on Aging, of which I'm a community member. This show is insightful for people of all ages, and each episode takes a fresh look at important issues by spotlighting older adults in the community, representatives of services and programs, and activities of interest to older adults. My name is Katie. On this month's show, we're going to talk about fire prevention. Here to join me for that discussion is Montgomery County Fire Chief Corey Smedley and Jim Resnick, who's a retired battalion chief and the program manager of senior outreach and education with the Montgomery County Fire and Rescue Service. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you very much, Katie.
So glad you're here. Can you both tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do? And Chief, we'll start with you.
Okay. So I'm Corey Smedley. I've been in the fire service for about a little bit over 30 years now. About 14 months in Montgomery County. What do I do as the fire chief? I put out other kind of fires, but really getting to understand the community and their needs and figuring out how we can meet their expectations to keep them safe.
Chief, you said 14 months. I suggest you're a newbie.
I'm a newbie to Montgomery County, correct.
Okay,
correct,
and
yeah.
I also, it's my understanding that you're a history maker.
Yes, I am. So I am the first outside chief here in Montgomery County. I also was the first African American chief in Alexandria. So why I'm so proud about that is because my mom got to see that twice.
Wow!
Yeah.
Congratulations
Yeah.
to you and your family.
Yeah, thank you.
Jim, you're a regular, but tell us about yourself.
Thanks for having me again, Katie. My name's Jim Resnick. I'm a retired Montgomery County Fire Battalion Chief. The way that we work that in Montgomery County is that there's 37 fire and rescue stations, but geographically they're grouped into 5 separate battalions. So the battalion chief is essentially the career chief that covers anywhere from about 8 to about 10 fire stations and is responsible for the personnel and responsible for managing any major incidents there. And that capped off, my being a battalion chief capped off what's been almost a 50-year career and volunteer time in Montgomery County. Like Chief Smedley, we've both been around the block a couple of times. And in my retirement, I came back as a program manager for the Fire Safety for Seniors program, which has me doing a lot of work with the Commission on Aging and Age Friendly Montgomery and other groups like that, which it's an honor to serve the older adult population of the county.
I just want to say thank you to you both and keeping this community safe and healthy in all your years of service.
Thanks.
So October is Fire Prevention Month. What should we know?
Chief?
Actually, it's Fire Prevention Week, but Montgomery
Okay.
County makes an entire month. We don't want
Okay.
to shortchange ourselves of keeping our community safe. It really is a nationwide approach to paying attention to fire safety. And I can tell you from my 30 years, and I'm certain from Jim's 50 years, we've seen the evolution of what we have to deal with as risk. So this season's Fire Prevention Month in Montgomery County, but across the nation, is Take Charge for Fire Safety. And the reason we're talking about Take Charge for Fire Safety has to do with lithium-ion batteries in the home.
Now, along those lines, lithium-ion batteries, we're finding, number one, they have entered our homes and our lives in so many ways. There's so many products that all of us are using every day in and around our homes and in and around our lives that are powered by these rechargeable lithium-ion batteries. And therein lies one of the new and emerging risks that we're seeing in the community. In Montgomery County, we're running a lot of fires that are related to the recharging of lithium-ion batteries, and again, it goes along the lines of what the fire chief was saying with charge into safety, and we want to make sure that we do that. So we're focusing on these lithium-ion batteries that we see in cell phones, in tablets and laptops like what you have there, in rechargers, and in so many other things that we're seeing in our lives. And I want to give a quick little just explanation about what these batteries are.
Please do, Jim.
These are not lithium-ion batteries. These are both alkaline batteries that I have in my hands right now. I have a AA and a AAA battery. These are basically, I'll call them kind of single use. I put them into a device and I use it until the battery is no longer providing any power, and then I can dispose of these things properly. And with anything electronic, there is a little bit of a fire risk. But once we have batteries that are about this size, these are essentially what lithium-ion batteries look like, but then we put these things into devices that can be recharged, like cell phones, like lawn equipment, like power tools, like vaping pens, and other things like that. It's when these devices are being recharged that we see a huge problem with the batteries overheating and, in fact, exploding.
Wow.
Yeah, we have seen, so in Maryland, the state fire marshal, about in 2023, started really tracking this. That's when we started to notice an uptick in lithium-ion batteries and the risks that they provide. So the state fire marshal started to track that, and we did start to see an uptick. Montgomery County, we had about 18 fires related to lithium-ion batteries in calendar year 2024. And you don't even know it. You don't pay attention to where they exist in your home, and they are in many places. And so it is important that when you buy whatever device it is, you look at the label. For instance, Underwriter Laboratories, which is a company that, based on the safety risk, they look at things to make sure that it is manufactured based on those safety requirements. And always take heed to the manufacturer's guidelines. What we're seeing is you have these knockoff places that you can buy a second or a third generation of a charger, but they're not really safe enough to use, and we're starting to see more fires and accidents that way.
Wow. With respect to the batteries and disposal, can you talk a little bit about that? Just curious.
Sure, and actually we've been in touch with the Montgomery County Department of Environmental Protection, which is an incredible organization doing a lot of things in order to keep the environment in the county clean and safe, healthy air, healthy water, and so on. But they are intimately involved in the recycling and or disposal of these lithium-ion batteries.
Okay.
What they recommend to every county resident is that they dispose of their lithium-ion batteries or battery-powered devices at the transfer station, which is located at 16101 Frederick Road, up in the northern part of Rockville or the southern part of Gaithersburg.
I know that, yeah.
Every hour that the transfer station is open, there are hazardous materials people there who can accept those devices and batteries and so on. They want you to transport them there safely by putting each device and each battery into a separate plastic bag or something like that. And if any of the devices or batteries have been damaged, they want to know about it before you hand them over to those folks. And these are very important but simple steps that can prevent fires and other kinds of problems. And most importantly, we don't ever want to take any of these lithium-ion battery-powered devices and put them in the regular trash.
You know, that's good. I've actually been over to the transfer station before to dispose of goods, and they have a really seamless process. You go through the line, and if it's for batteries or an electronic device, you go to one section, or something else, there's another section. So
it's a tremendous resource.
It is. I have a question about that, though. What other agencies in the county do you work with? Where's the cross-collaboration?
That's an excellent question. So in Montgomery County, the fire marshal responsibility within the fire code, rests within Department of Permitting Services, which is a little unique throughout the state. So I get a lot of DPS's questions, and we work a lot in that space. But we, with the fire code, building code areas, we work with Department of Permitting Services. We work with Department of Environmental Protection Agency. Also, another example would be Office of Emergency Management, to make sure that we're having appropriate plans and training and exercising those plans in the event something happens. We also work with the Maryland Department of the Environment. At the state level, it's kind of the state Environmental Protection Agency, where we're understanding the what they're seeing, what legislation needs to be adopted or changed or modified to make sure that whatever is coming, because the world is changing vastly, and we know from my experience, I know legislation is much slower, so we have to stay in constant contact to make sure that we're paying attention to these different things to keep you safe.
Thanks for indulging me in the pivot. Go ahead.
And actually, Katie, along those lines, of course, on a day in, day out basis, our partners are law enforcement, Montgomery County Police, and also the local police departments in the different municipalities. But also, and I'm going to pass this back to Chief Smedley, with what you talk about with us being a public health agency.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you for that.
Yes.
Man, you just gave me a dunk. So, you know, this is upcoming fire safety. Fire safety is what we do, and we are seeing an uptick across the nation in fires for various reasons. Lithium-ion battery is one, but over about 80% of our call demand has to do with emergency medical services. So think about that from a standpoint of people are growing older. We're talking about 50 plus. People are growing older and they're living in place, and we want to make sure they're safe in that space. And also there's a lot of equipment, medical equipment that use lithium-ion batteries, and we need to make sure that we're educating our community about these tools and the better ways to use them to keep them safe.
You talked about people growing older. What advice would you give to older adults who maybe have limited mobility issues, but you know, fire prevention is important for them still?
So let's start with what everyone needs to have in their home, on every level of their home. And even if it's not required to be in their bedroom, we like to have smoke alarms in their bedroom too. And that is a working smoke alarm. And the only way that you know it's working is you've pushed the button and you've tested it. Now, when we're talking about older adults, a lot of folks either aren't able to or probably shouldn't get up on a step ladder to try to push the button when this device is on the ceiling. But we tell people you can use a broom, you can use a yardstick or something like that with a long stick or a long handle and push the test button and make sure that your smoke alarms are working. If you have any issues, if you're having problems being able to test your alarms, you're not sure if they're working or not, or you physically can't do that, any county resident can call 311 and request a home safety check from the fire department. And on an appointment basis, one of our fire rescue personnel will come to your home. They'll check this out. It's non-judgmental. We're there to make sure that people are safe in their homes. So the early warning that's provided by a working smoke alarm is the most important thing for 50 plus, for people with mobility issues, but for everybody.
That's right. That's right.
We did another partner is the Red Cross.
Okay.
We had a sound the alarm event this past weekend. We experienced a fire in the Kensington area. We do what's called after the fire, where we canvass the neighborhood, because you know there's really 3 times when the community pays attention to fire safety: when they have a child, when they're about to buy a home, because it goes through an inspection, or when there's a fire that happens to them in close proximity. So we do it after the fire because we take advantage of people paying attention to something that happened in their community. So we did it after the fire event, after that fire, and then last Saturday, we also did, in conjunction with the Red Cross and many volunteers, sound the alarm, where we also canvassed the neighborhood. We visited 75 homes. We installed just under 100 smoke alarms.
Wow.
So, you know, even though a fire occurred, we went after the fire to do the same thing, and then a couple days later, a week later, we went again. We still are finding people are not having this very useful tool to keep them safe. We know this buys you time, and when you have this working and an unfortunate event of a fire happening, you get out. So please, if you don't hear anything else we say, please put up a smoke alarm. Call 311. We'll come out. We'll do all we can to keep you safe, give you tips, install smoke alarms free of charge. If nothing else, the smoke alarm saved lives.
All right, Fire Chief. Now I'm going to have to ask the question that's not politically correct. No, I have not done this. But what about for those folks who disarm or disable their smoke detectors? What do you say to them?
People will often, actually, I'll take that one for you, Chief.
Yeah, please, thank you. Keep me
People
out of
will
trouble.
often either unplug their alarms, remove batteries, or take the alarms down completely because it's chirping as a result of the battery being low. Or it's making a different chirp which says that the sensors are not working. Or there's a different chirp if this is a smoke and carbon monoxide alarm, and it's saying that the carbon monoxide alarm is also a cause of this thing making noises that are, I'll call them, more annoying to people. So there's reasons that people will do that. Here's the issue. As soon as you've done that, you've taken away a potentially life-saving device. We know that these things give like an 80% greater chance of surviving a fire if you have a working smoke alarm. So the answer to that is, if you've had to take it down, call 311. Have us come out. Maybe you don't have the right type of smoke alarm, or the location is not an ideal location. So we have ways of working with that.
Jim, can you thread the needle a little bit more on lithium-ion batteries? What else should we know?
So, as the Chief had said previously, we want to make sure that we buy only products that have the Underwriters Laboratories or other certified testing lab approval on it. And I don't know if you'll see it or not, but on this is my laptop charger here, and there's a little UL in a circle, the letters UL, which is Underwriters Laboratories. So you want to look for that for the devices. The charging part is where we're finding a lot of these fires are starting. We started to see this first up in New York City, which, because of the size of the population and the number of devices there, got to be a really, really big deal. But the recharging of these devices, my cell phone, my tablet, my laptop, or anything like that, is problematic if people don't do certain things. We do have a handout available that's through the fire service. If you want a copy of this, you can go online to our website, which is mcfrs.org/mcsafe. But what we have found is that, number one, if devices have been damaged at all, this is a power block which is used for recharging phones and laptops and so on, but this had fallen down and had actually cracked here. And if someone tries to reuse this, this is potentially going to cause a fire when it's being recharged. Similarly, I want to make sure that any device that I'm recharging is on a hard, flat, non-combustible surface. So I don't want to charge my phone on top of a bunch of papers or my laundry. I want to make sure I don't recharge my tablet in bed with me, where it's not a hard, flat surface. We also want to make sure we never cover these things up with anything, because that can trap the heat, cause the batteries to overheat and explode. And I never want to recharge these devices in direct sunlight, because the extra power, the extra energy from the sun can be enough, again, to compromise those batteries. And again, they don't just burn, they literally explode.
You know, I would want to ask you, Jim, to say that all over again, because a lot of people are getting this wrong.
Okay.
Especially about like charging your phone in your bed, or on top of papers if you're in your office, or even the power cord. I'm sure many people don't have it on a flat surface.
Yep.
That's interesting. Those are tips that I'm going to adopt myself, to make changes.
As we all should. And as I've learned more about this myself, I've changed this. And I'm sure, Chief, you probably have had the same experience.
I have 3 young adults, and they grew up with these things. They're no longer in the home, so I get to keep my chargers, because they would take all my chargers. You couldn't find them. But they would use them in such a way, they're in bed using them. It's under their pillow. They keep them charged when they're not using them. Those things can overheat and cause a fire. So that's something that I want everybody to think about. That if you're not needing to charge them, unplug them.
Okay.
The other thing that we've seen, and I know Jim has done a lot of teaching on this, is that we've evolved in the fire service because we had to. Things don't need to be plugged up anymore to catch on fire. Right? They can be remote and catch on fire all by itself. And so we used to teach things like using of a fire extinguisher. There's new technology out there that I'm sure people see on whatever They subscribe to this great technology that's out there that we are just saying don't use. Get out the house. As Jim mentioned, these things don't just catch on fire, they explode and they're burning hotter and faster. So we've had instances where people didn't call us first and tried to put the fire out and then got into a bad situation, got burned, or actually did not survive. Get out. Get out. Just that simple. Call 911. We're trained. We have the tools and the resources to mitigate that emergency. Let the professionals do that job.
Wow. Talk a little bit more about the other technologies, new technologies that perhaps we think are really useful, but maybe we should avoid.
We're seeing not just fire extinguishers like what Chief Smedley was talking about, but also fire blankets. And many times I'm approached by people during the safety training sessions that I give, and they say, hey, I've seen these things advertised. The advertisement looks like it's the greatest thing ever, and it's so easy to use. The issue that we have with that, it is right off of what the chief was saying, is these cause people to have to go towards something that's on fire. The only people who should even think about going towards a fire are professional firefighters, trained firefighters who are properly trained and equipped. As a firefighter, I'm not going into a place that has a fire of any kind unless I have a backup, I have a team, I've got proper equipment that I know is working properly, and even to the point where every inch of my skin is covered with protective gear, and my lungs are protected because I'm going to be wearing a breathing tank on my back which has clean, fresh air. The air from the fires that can be caused by anything, batteries, plastics, any of these things, is poison. So the easiest technology answer is forget about it, okay? If God forbid there's a fire, just get out. Have a plan for how you're going to get out, where you're going to get out, where you're going to go, and then once you're outside, call 911.
Okay.
And if you forgot your phone, bang on a neighbor's door.
Will do. Now, Jim, I've been in a number of your teachings, so in every one that you do, you talk about the file of life.
Yep.
Can you do that today?
So the file of life is an incredibly important and valuable tool for older adults, but for anyone maybe with disabilities or with significant medical conditions. The file of life does no good for anyone unless the form has been filled out ahead of time. Okay. To fill out this front and back form takes maybe 10 minutes, probably less than 10 minutes. It carries the information that the EMTs, paramedics, other first responders, and as well as the hospital folks would need about the person. Name, address, date of birth, that type of information, any kind of medical conditions that exist, if the person has any allergies, if they take any medications, emergency contacts, some insurance information, and then some health care decisions in the back. You can fill that out quickly. We can even help you fill it out. If you need a file of life, get one if you will fill it out and then put it on the refrigerator. All of our responders are trained to look for this on the refrigerator.
You know, the winter months are coming up. What should we be mindful of? I know a lot of people have their space heaters and candles. Tell us some things that we should make sure we take note of.
Well, as the weather gets colder, people are spending a lot more time indoors to start with. So that changes some of the fires that we see. Rather than fires on the outside of a structure coming in, we see a lot of inside fires from exactly what you're talking about. The number one cause of fires we see in the county, as well as throughout the state and throughout the United States and probably the world, are unattended cooking fires. So as the holidays come up, especially when we're thinking about other things besides what we're cooking, we need to pay attention in the kitchen. And our saying is, stand by your pan. Okay, you've got something cooking, stay with it. Above and beyond that, as you mentioned, the use of space heaters. Space heaters need space. We need to give any space heater at least 3 feet of space around. Make sure it's plugged directly into the wall, not into an extension cord. And there's many other tips that we have available.
You know, in talking to you both, I can tell you really love your jobs.
Oh, yeah. Yes, sir.
And I know personally I'm appreciative that you're in your positions, right? And making sure that Montgomery County, again, stays safe. But you have the final word here.
Chief?
You know, the bottom line is we go out proactively to engage the community. What I want people to also know is that the community also is within the fire service. So you have husbands, wives, dads, moms. So we're giving you this great information to keep you safe. And when something happens, we have to send those people in harm's way. So I need you to think about your family and to think about their family as well. And anything you can do to help us keep each other safe, please help us do that. And we will come out and do whatever we can to provide you information and tools to do that.
I won't charge my phone in the bed. Jim, last word from you.
What the chief just described is what we call community risk reduction.
Okay.
And it's reducing the risk for the public as well as for our responders, their families, and the list goes on and on. We run upwards of 150,000 emergency calls every year. But above and beyond that, which is a huge footprint of what the Fire and Rescue Service does, we're also out there in the prevention world, and we want to work with the community. So please, you got questions, call us. You need help, call us. 311 is your best bet.
I look forward to seeing both of you in the community even more. Thank you for your service. Congratulations on your history-making moments. And hopefully we can bring you back on the show again soon.
We'd love to come back.
Thank you.
All right. Well, that concludes our program for today. As you can see, the voices of those 50 plus matter every day and in every way. To learn more about services for seniors in Montgomery County, please visit the Montgomery County Seniors website by visiting montgomerycountymd.gov/senior or call the Senior Resource Line at 240-777-3000. And as always, thank you for watching 50 Plus Montgomery County.